I'm not sure if this is entirely correct because I read it on the internet, but apparently Chelsea's Reece James has not played 3 games in a row since 2021. Now, this is potentially Premier League games, but that is wild. And now that he has a red card suspension, he will not play 3 games in a row before 2024, I believe. That's a 3-year period, 1, 2, 3, where the youngster would not have played 3 games in a row. Absolutely chicken oriental.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought.
Wagwan, my G's. Welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. I hope you're doing well. I really do hope that in these turbulent, confusing times. Welcome back to Chelsea News. Today we're citing an article from Nazar Kinsella of the Evening Standard, the Standard Sport. We're talking about Reece James, the captain, seeking advice. The owners are backing Mauricio Pochettino, says Fabrizio Romano. Unsurprisingly, of course, these murmurs, rumours come up. But there is also an article from The Mail about young midfielder Alex Matos, which I don't really want to go into. But essentially, after Chelsea's loss against Newcastle, he went out to train. He's like, when are the others coming out? Is it right that we get days off still? You know, this is an unused substitute youth player. A little bit of controversy because Pochettino said no days off now. And of course, players went to go and have days off. And Nico Jackson was pictured in Villarreal. But, that was a pre-planned trip. And apparently Chelsea went out and essentially said, no, nothing's changed. The players have still got days off. Whatever, it's a bit of a non-story. So that's all I'm going to say on that. But we are going to get into the stuff today with Naz's article, with Fabrizio Romano's asserting the position of the Chelsea ownership, with the management in regards to Pochettino. Strap yourselves in. Thank you for joining me. If you want to support the content, just simply click like. It takes a millisecond, whether you're click of a finger or a tap of the button. Many of you watch YouTube mobile. Just press the like button with your thumb. And of course, if you want to, you are welcome to subscribe. Hopping on right in then to the Standard Sports article. Reece James, Chelsea captaincy proving to be a heavy burden as defender seeks advice. Now, before we jump in, I have sort of recently spoken about my reservations of Reece James as a captain in terms of his character as a figure. Of course, I'm comparing this to, well, firstly, John Terry, which is like the ultimate captain, but also Cesar Azpilicueta in terms of how he spoke, how he represented the club. And then, I said it in yesterday's video, I believe, but I'll say it again, or one of yesterday's videos. Everyone said to me, well, Jan, he'll lead by example on the pitch. And of course, him getting a petulant double yellow card is a bad sign. But then again, he's still a young player, but he's young, but he's 24. But wasn't Matthijs de Ligt captain of Ajax at 19? But the way he spoke, he was like a captain. He had captain aura. Does Reece James have captain aura? I don't know. Maybe there's still time for him to develop that. A late red card for Reece James compounded a miserable afternoon for Chelsea at St James's Park on Saturday, writes Kinsella. His dismissal summed up by a bad team display. James, already on a booking for time wasting, was outmaneuvered by Anthony Gordon and pulled the Newcastle winger back after a poor touch to earn the second yellow. He's now suspended for Brighton next weekend, and hopefully for us that Malo Gusto is good to go for that game. Pochettino had hoped James would complete his first 90 minutes since April. What a cruel, ironic turn of events, ladies and gentlemen. But admitted afterwards he was disappointed in his captain. He says, Reece James said, I take full responsibility of my red card. Another lesson, I'd like to apologise to my fans and teammates. James, who had been one of the better Chelsea performers until his red card. Yes, true to a degree. I think he was good right up until he got into an argument with Jason Tyndall. Is it Jason Tyndall? What's his first name? Anyway, the knobber, the assistant coach of Newcastle. I think he got inside his head, which is totally down to Reece James, and he started playing poorly from then onwards. He was chosen for the captaincy, James, because he is someone who truly understands the tough club culture built by legends like Drogba, Terry, Lampard. The academy graduate and Chelsea fan has been leaning on Thiago Silva for advice and even went to France during the international break to pick the brains of South Africa's Rugby World Cup winning captain Siya Kolisi, excuse me. Sorry, there's a small font there. That's good. Extracurricular captain research. I like stuff like that, but for me, it's not even about the learning. It's like, to be a good captain, it's got to be something inside. But I don't want to write off James as a captain. I just have reservations and concerns. He is doing his best, but stopping Chelsea's decline is a heavy burden on a young captain. Amen. Who is trying to perform himself to get back in the England team ahead of the Euros. Well, apparently Gareth Southgate wanted to call him up, but Reece James and Chelsea said no, it's best he doesn't get called up. But he would have been called up. I think if Reece James carries on playing up until the next international break, where it's just a couple of friendlies, if he's carrying on playing, it's up to Southgate. If you're not going to call up Chelsea's 24-year-old captain, who's possibly our best player, then that's on Southgate. Pochettino was measured in his criticism of one of his best players, knowing James will be key to any Chelsea revival, but for the first time, Pochettino refused to put a positive spin on a loss, calling his players soft, which we spoke about, and admitting to being very, 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 very angry. Last week, he met his players to discuss why the team have fallen short in games they were expected to win, of which there are a few, ladies and gentlemen. His feeling is they continue to ignore his advice about being more competitive. How is that advice, though? I could go there and be Chelsea manager. Hey, guys, right, I've figured it out, and I know how to get us out of here. So listen to me. You need to be more competitive. All right, cool. So see you on Saturday, and I expect to win. Meaning players must be willing to make contact with either the ball or the opposing players in duels. I think he's sort of suggesting they're wussing out. Be ready to use the dark arts and really strive for victories. And that's exactly what Newcastle do. And I hate to say this, but it is like they want it more. Do you know what I mean? It's a case of they want it more and they're sort of demonstrating that on the pitch. But also, I said it before, boy howdy, I'm going to say it again, more maturity, which is so... I know I hate to be so reductionist in football because me, I'm a guy talking about stats, analysis and, all that kind of stuff. But It's a lack of maturity, it really is. Injury hit Newcastle, lest we forget, did not play particularly well, but they still slapped us up and we ate 4 goals. And yes, I know, we played Man City the game before, but we still conceded 8 goals in 2 games. I don't care who you play, because even if it is Man City, if someone said to you, Chelsea, you're supposed to be Chelsea's DNA, you don't ship loads of goals. That's not Chelsea, You'd concede 8 goals in 2 games. I don't care, if you're playing, prime Pep Guardiola Barcelona and then, treble winning Man City. You just don't concede 8 goals in 2 games. I'm sorry. Qualities to overcome Chelsea. So Lascelles said this: we just felt on top of them, he said. After the second goal, they lost their heads a bit and we took advantage. Whenever you have opposition players going, they're just sort of wusses and lost their heads, you're just yeah, you're right. We are all of that. After receiving 3 yellow cards himself and earning a suspension, Pochettino sat in the director's box at St James's Park. He had co-controlling owner Bedadig Barley and Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart for company. Great, I wonder what they freaking talked about up there. Watching that absolute crap show. If you were the manager, oh shit! Sorry, I just hit my keyboard. If you were the manager and you were sitting next to the co-sporting directors and the co-controlling owner, you'd be like, ugh. Especially when, like, at least from the touchline, you can like pretend they're not there, like above you in the director's box, and you can just be like all shouty and pointy. But when you're like sitting next to them and you're all like quietly and reservedly watching, you know, the demonstration of your body of work as coach, and it's just this absolute horror show, you'd just be like, so, what are you planning for dinner tonight? Dreadful scenes. Pochettino expressed his anger and disappointment at his side's spectacular collapse against Newcastle, who scored 3 times in the final 30 minutes, as Chelsea's defence lost its shape and their mini revival was brought to a halt. James needs to play a vital leadership role in stamping out the softness. Right, we're going to talk about Pochettino in just a second. Yeah, man, we don't have any seniority. Well, we do. We got Thiago Silva. And you know when I spoke about, like, Reece James isn't going to be the John Terry captain. He's going to be more the lead by example, which he hasn't been. That's kind of what you're actually getting from Thiago Silva, minus the Newcastle performance. And it would be so unfair to just dig out Thiago Silva after what was a crap performance, granted. But Thiago Silva, I'm thinking that game, and I'm thinking his debut against West Brom in terms of those high-profile mistakes. Other than that, he's been the lead by example leader on the pitch, which is great, and it's been useful. But we're still lacking that, like, Azpilicueta, and even Azpilicueta had like an element of being soft. Like, his attitude was second to none, but he didn't have, like, you know, this aura, and it's so hard to follow John Terry as captain. But you know, that really commanding aura of like, nah, bollocks, we don't do this. Do you know what I mean? Like, straight up, we don't have that from anyone. And maybe we would have that from Thiago Silva if we signed him when, you know, instead of PSG signing him from Milan, so he ends up learning English and not French, because obviously he's a fluent French speaker, but he's sort of like, can't be asked to learn English now. He learns, you know, he knows Portuguese, he knows French, he knows Italian. I think he got to the Premier League and was like, look, man, I'm 36. I'm chill. I'm multilingual. I'm done. You know, he learns a few words, but that's it. But had we like signed him off Milan, he'd be fluent English speaker, and maybe he could, with that communicative power, be this kind of like more of a assertive leader, and he would have been around longer to be more of like a cultural leader of Chelsea rather than this sort of cult. Well, yeah, rather than this sort of fleeting cult hero. Anyway, I'm sort of getting lost in the weeds here a little bit. In terms of leadership on the pitch, we're just severely lacking. And it's not really something now you can buy in unless you sign John Terry. Do you remember when Villa signed John Terry? They just made him captain straight away. Because they was like, yeah, it makes sense. Anyway, we're severely lacking. Is there someone that's going to become that guy? I did always think Mason Mount could be. But I think even he as a character is getting lost and having a bit of an existential crisis at the moment at Man United. Will Reece James do it? I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. Let's talk about Poch. Let's talk about Poch, baby. Fabrizio Romano says Chelsea's position is still to trust Mauricio Pochettino. His job is not at risk at this stage. Is there any stage at this point? Certainly this season. Chelsea know it's a young team and will take some time. The club are not so happy with the current situation and want to see improvements, but the owners and directors trust Pochettino. It's so fine margins. That game against Newcastle, and we will put this to bed and never think about it again, hopefully very soon. But it just really feeds into the narrative of Chelsea are just such this like basket case club where you don't know where they are. And had we just freaking beaten Newcastle, and it's not an easy task, they're a good team, they're a Champions League team and they're at home in a cauldron that is St James's Park. Had we just beaten them, we'd be like, actually, yeah, Chelsea good. And that's all it would have taken. One result. And the narrative would have been so radically the other way. Chelsea, you know, put Tottenham to the sword and their season unravelled afterwards. Chelsea went toe-to-toe with the treble winners Man City in an all-timer. You know, Chelsea are offering loads of amazing games in the Premier League. And wow, now they've gone away to, you know, Newcastle, St James's Park, who had returning players. And, you know, Isak was good, Trippier was good, Guimaraes, Joao Linton was good, Almiron returned. Like, it was a good Newcastle team. And granted, they had a weak bench, but they were, like, a good team. And had we won there, it would have been like, yeah, Chelsea, serious stuff. But that one result and capitulation is really concerning. And I don't want to make excuses, or certainly these excuses later down the line in Pochettino's reign will not wash. But maybe because it's early doors in his reign still, and Chelsea is still transitioning, kind of, that maybe this can wash a little bit, that it is just after an international break, and he had a touchline ban, and while we're waiting for these young players to develop, in terms of maturity, you need literally the parent, the adult on the touchline to just tell them to calm the F down. Do you know what I mean? Stop behaving poorly, children. And that is something that can't be a long-term thing at Chelsea, but maybe right now it is a bit of an excuse, And we can do all the hard analysis we want, but I feel like Chelsea fans are just in such a difficult place at the moment because we've had this for a while now. And we had it with Tuchel. Look, man, the thing is with Tuchel, we won the Champions League, right? And we were in terrible form. We were doing really bad in the Premier League. We were really bad. We accidentally fell into 4th place. We lost the FA Cup final to Leicester, where we really should have done better. And of course, we put an amazing performance in Porto and we won the Champions League. But the end of the season, generally, in terms of the body of work from the footballers, was really bad. And we've been sort of inconsistent ever since. Granted, we won, the Super Cup and the Club World Cup, of which we were favourites to do both. But we're sort of all over the gaff. Do you know what I mean? And then, your Potter comes in and, Lampard comes back in. And the Chelsea fans have been dealing with inconsistent football for ages. I was chatting to a few people about the last time Chelsea were just reliably good. And yeah, I know Sarri, we finished 3rd under Sarri and won the Europa League. And that was good, but that was still, Hazard and Kante and vibes. We overplayed Kante in that Europa League final and it screwed over, largely messed up the latter part of his career. And we were relying on Hazard, but we weren't consistently good. Hazard had a great season. Kante had a great season under Sarri. But in terms of being a consistently good team, it was when we won the league in 16-17. So slowly, we've been in this kind of weird, zone and place as Chelsea fans of we won the Champions League. That's us, Chelsea. Chaos and trophies, and we love it, Our blood pressure's high, but then we get, these trophies. But then that's sort of the sort of papering over the cracked trophy sort of dripped away, and we were right, well, let's get back to being this sustainable, well-built, structurally sound team built on a good foundation of well scouted young footballers and a footballing structure of directors and sporting directors, and a long-term designs for strategy, and so it's sustainable long-term. And then obviously, because of this rebuild, the chaos and, the gambling of chaos and success goes. And then we're in an existential crisis as Chelsea fans because we don't know where we are anymore. We get excited because we buy good players. But as this sort of settled team, and so we're forced to look back at, that. And we just had really, really strict manager in Conte, a hard regimented team. We still had John Terry behind the scenes. We still had Steve Holland, which I think was massive. People forget how all Chelsea's league-winning success and stuff, Steve Holland, all our domestic success was linked with managers and Steve Holland in between. You had John Terry behind the scenes, and you had loads of senior players, and even players like Gary Cahill, and just these really calm heads, professionals, as per the Quetters and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And winning the league with a bit more of a prime Matic. We just don't have these figures. There's no seniority, there's no maturity, and yes, I think Pochettino can be strict, but it's not the same. And I'm not saying we need to bring in a militant Simeone type like Conte, and but I do feel like we need to find somewhere in between. Anyway, I do realise I'm rambling a little bit, harking back to the times of old. Still, Pochettino is in situ. He's not going to go yet. I know people are talking about like Alonso of Leverkusen. Well, is he still top of the Bundesliga? But look, he's man at the moment, isn't he? Even if he finishes the season, not winning the Bundesliga but in a title race, he's still just the Maurizio Sarri of 2017. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the flavour of the moment. You just don't know if that's what you want to hang your hat on. Pochettino's the one. He really is for the moment. He's got a good relationship with the players, the management, the sporting directors. He's good at developing young players, and he's good at building a structure at a club. He's got experience of doing it in 2 clubs in the Premier League, so therefore he's the one, especially while we settle and just build this team. That if he's only here with us for another 12, 18 months, that will shock no one. But it still will probably be very, very valuable work from him, even if we underperform in terms of, league table finishes and stuff. But fortunately for us, we won't get relegated almost certainly, unless a horrible points deduction comes. Let me know what you think. It's painful right now, but you have to look forward, and you kind of have to look backwards as well and analyse where we've been and what will happen next. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for subscribing if you wanted to, if you've chosen to. My brain's starting to fail. So I'm going to chill, and hopefully I'll see you back here soon. Peace.